Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I hope everyone had a nice lunch prasad to your full satisfaction. So we're going to continue with our discussion about desires, Krishna, and how is it that you're going to make spiritual advancement? Bhagavatam certainly is about pure devotional service. As we said this morning, it's the Paramahansa Samhita. And you know that in the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, the standard is set. The bar is set very high. Dharma projita kaitavotala paramo namatsaranam satam. Right in the beginning, Bhagavatam clarifies its position. It sweeps out any pretense at dharma, kaitava. It calls such dharma cheating, which has some motive other than Krishna's pleasure. So this is what makes Srimad Bhagavatam unique. It is the Shastra of pure love. And as we spoke this morning, it is pure love that's the only thing that will satisfy us. Now, in Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse, Akama sarvakama va moksha kama utarati, a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. So in his purport, he points out that we all, even in material life, demonstrate our attraction to selfless service. Simply, the pure devotional attitude of the spirit soul is manifesting in a distorted way through the material atmosphere. Just think how you sacrifice for families, for communities, for a nation, for all of humanity, or for the planet. There is some desire of the human being to engage in service without any return. Of course, it's material life, so there's always some expectation. But still, there is appreciation for giving of yourself. That's what family life ideally is about, right? It doesn't always happen that way, but that's the hope. That all the family members are giving of themselves selflessly for the betterment of the family. And then for nationalism, every nation has its political heroes. Everywhere. India, USA, Australia. I remember I was on a plane and someone next to me was watching a Bollywood film. And he had the volume way up high. So it was about a hero who saved the nation from some attack by Muslim terrorists. And so the climatic part of the movie was when he declared his motivation. He said, "The love of the nation flows in my veins thicker than my blood." It was a peak moment of it. That goes on everywhere in the world. This feeling of sacrificing for something, family, society, nation. I was telling devotees at New Govardhan last week about how school kids in the USA all have to learn about one hero in the conflict between Britain and the USA. Colonies, the original colonies in North America, and then the British colonial government. So in America, we're taught that this is the American Revolutionary War, when actually all that was going on was that the people in the colonies didn't want to pay taxes anymore to London. But now it's called a Revolutionary War to save the nation. Establishing a new nation for the people, by the people, of the people. But they simply just didn't want to pay taxes. So we're taught, as little school kids in the USA, of one so-called Revolutionary War hero. He was spying on the British, and he was captured. And so the British were about to hang him. And he's on the gallows with the rope around his neck. And the British Army asked him, well, do you have any last words before? And he said something that every school kid in the USA has to memorize and recite like a mantra. I only regret that I have just one life to give for my country. So my point is that this shows the spirit of self-sacrifice that we all have. But in material life, it's distorted. And we always want to kick back somehow. We want fame for our sacrifice, appreciation, financial return. But still, in its distorted way, there is that propensity for giving of yourself as selfless as you can. So Prabhupada is pointing out, this shows you that in your pure state, you want purity of love, purity of service. You can't get away from that. What do you think? Also, when I was at New Govardhan, I told the story of how I was in the airport in Melbourne, waiting to board a plane, and it was at a part of the terminal where there were many gates all at the end of the hall, about 4 gates. And so that meant about 300 people were seated, waiting for their planes. And in front of me, seated, was a very well-to-do looking businessman in his early 40s, his wife, and their 4-year-old daughter. And so here we are in a crowd of 300 persons seated. Everyone can see what everyone else is doing. And the little girl gets up and stands in front of her father and points to the ground and says, "Down, Daddy, down!" And the man gets up out of his chair, throws himself on the floor, throws his arms up in the air, and then seats himself again. And the little girl keeps doing that. "Down, Daddy, down!" And he throws himself off on the floor. And everyone's watching, and you can see the ladies are all smiling. Oh. And even the men are trying to hide their appreciation, you know. It's a very touching scene. Everyone's thinking, oh, this is what family life should be like. The father is showing, I'm under the control of my daughter's love. He doesn't even care that he's surrounded by 300 people in an airlines terminal. He's tasting what it's like to submit to his daughter's love. So Prabhupada's point is that we all have that tendency because it's coming from the soul. Let's hear what he says. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. This intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditioned stage of a living being in the material world. And such intuition is expressed in the manner of altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, and so forth, by the undeveloped minds of less intelligent persons. In the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country, or humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling in which a pure living entity feels happiness by the happiness of the Supreme Lord. Such superb feelings were exhibited by the damsels of Brajabhumi for the happiness of the Lord. The gopis loved the Lord without any return, and this is the perfect exhibition of the akama spirit. Kama spirit, or the desire for one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in the material world, whereas the spirit of akama is fully exhibited in the spiritual world. So first of all, let us understand that to be truly intelligent means even if you have material desires, you approach Krishna. If your intelligence is not developed, you express your capacity for selfless seva through the material energy, through temporary mediums like community, family, society, humanity. That's for those with undeveloped intelligence. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, Uttanati, those who have broad intelligence, wide intelligence, they know, even if I have material desires, still I engage in Krishna's service. And how do I engage in that service? The verse says, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, with the intensity of a ray of sunlight. And the more that ray of sunlight, that ray of bhakti, is unmixed with karma and jnana, desires for material betterment or even liberation, the more pure is your motivation. Like a pure ray of sunlight, the more effective your service is. Those of you who have read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I hope that's quite a few of you, may recall where Srila Prabhupada says, this Krishna consciousness movement is meant for all types of persons, even though they may have material desires. Still, this Krishna consciousness movement is for them. And by the association of devotees, gradually they realize that Krishna's service is the everything. So this shows you what our scope is, what our approach is. The Acharyas have given us a mission that is meant to attract everyone, even if they have material desires. So this is very encouraging, isn't it? And here Shukadeva Goswami in this verse is saying, even if you have material desires, engage in Krishna's service. So the question we were discussing this morning is, well, what does Krishna do with my material desires? It's very nice and broad-minded that Krishna is inviting me to serve him even with material desires, but what does he do? This is what we want to know, right? So we can trust Krishna. This question is described, and its answer is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well as the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There you find that Krishna is revealing his thinking. Lord Chaitanya is speaking, the mind of Krishna. What kind of expert doctor is it who someone comes with a disease and the doctor doesn't treat the disease completely, but only treats it partially? What kind of doctor is that? This is Krishna thinking. Therefore, if someone approaches me, Krishna says, if someone approaches me with material desires, I treat them in such a way that they fulfill their desire in a way that they'll never ask for that again. Now, does this sound cruel? No. It's Krishna's loving transformation of your material desires. It's not brutal. I'll smash you and you will never ask for this again. That's what we're afraid of, right? No, Krishna is a supreme person, Purushottam. He treats you in such a way that while your desires are fulfilled, they're fulfilled in a way that you outgrow organically. And who is the classic example of that? Dhruva Maharaj. What did Dhruva Maharaj want? Actually, to put it bluntly, Dhruva Maharaj wanted money. In the form of a kingdom greater than anyone in his family line. He followed Narada Muni's instructions, as you know, because he was materially motivated. But then, as you know, when Dhruva saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he realized, I'm so foolish. I was wanting broken pieces of glass, and now I have the greatest jewel. So when the Supreme Personality of Godhead asked Dhruva, what do you want? What benediction do you want? Dhruva said, Swamin Katatasmi Varamnayaje. I'm fully satisfied just by your darshan. I don't want any material benediction. But if I must ask for one thing, let me ask for this. Always give me the association of pure devotees. So this is an example of the transformation of desire. Dhruva was one way, and then he became another way. He was engaging in Krishna's service with intense material desires, so intense that Narada Muni couldn't convince him otherwise. Right? Narada Muni told Dhruva, why are you so hung up just because you got insulted? Why are you dwelling on this? Just detach yourself. And what did Dhruva say? Your advice is perfect, but I'm not a Brahmana, I'm a Kshatriya. I have to have revenge. I have to outdo those who insulted me. So Narada Muni said, all right, here's the process. And Dhruva took to that process with material desires. But through the process of bhakti, Krishna transformed Dhruva. So that's why Lord Chaitanya, revealing the methodology of Krishna, says that if someone comes to me with material desires, I am not unintelligent. I fulfill those desires in such a way that they never ask for those things again, but they are fully satisfied serving my lotus feet. This is beautiful. This is love. Just like when a child wants something that's not good for the child, and the child is throwing a temper tantrum, the parents, especially the mother, figures out some way to pacify the child until the child grows up and doesn't want that thing anymore. This is the glory of bhakti. So you should have full confidence in Krishna that he can handle your material desires. You're intelligent in that you approach Krishna for the fulfillment of your desires. So Krishna says, I'm not unintelligent. I know how to handle this. I know how to treat you. You're engaged in my service with material desires. I will take care of you in such a way that you'll gradually forget all these material desires and simply be satisfied with my devotional service. Like a good physician who treats a disease and doesn't allow any traces of the disease to continue existing. A good physician cleans the disease completely. So Krishna says, that's what I do. In other words, Krishna knows how to handle us. He knows how to deal with us. But we're so paranoid about our desires. What's Krishna going to do to my desires? What's Krishna going to do to me? Is it possible that I can get too close to Krishna? Or as I sometimes say, have you seen the verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna warns you about too much Krishna? Anyone seen that verse? No. It doesn't exist. In our mind it exists. If I'm too Krishna conscious, what will happen to my career, right? What will happen to my marriage possibilities? Maybe delay the bhakti till after the career, after the marriage, after the PR. This is our paranoia. So therefore, it's very essential that we study the Shastra and understand Krishna's modus operandi, how he does things. We are fortunate if we approach Krishna, even with material desires. And then Krishna knows how to transform you. This is the potency of bhakti. We don't turn anyone away. We encourage everyone in devotional service. And by the association of mature devotees, the younger devotees are inspired to purify their motivation. Now here's another point. You might say, well, all glory is to pure bhakti, Shuddha bhakti, but we're so far from that, what's the point of even hearing about it? But you see, just by hearing about Shuddha bhakti, pure devotional service, we're purified. Just by hearing about it. Even though we may not be doing it, by hearing about it, our hearts are becoming cleansed. And gradually, the subject becomes more and more attractive to us. And by hearing, as the heart becomes cleaner and cleaner, you start to try to act in that way. So it's most essential for us to hear about the subject matter. You might remember when you were little and your parents would tell you, when you grow up, you'll be doing like this, you'll be doing like that. And you, as a little kid, you couldn't see how you would be doing such things. But because the parents planted the seed in you, as you grew up, as you matured, you started doing those things, and you realized, this is what my parents said. I often tell the story of how when I was 8 years old, my mother would always ask me, so what do you want to be? What's your career? She was very much pushing upward mobility. You're 8 years old, what do you think you want to be? So I had seen some chemical engineers wearing these hard hats. So I thought that would be cool to wear such a hat. So I told my mother, I want to be a chemical engineer. Immediately my mother races to the children's bookshop in New York City and comes back with a book, Your Child's Future as a Chemical Engineer. Only 8 years old. She was being a good mother. She told me when I was a little boy, if you want to be successful in life, you have to be 3 things. You have to be a scholar, you have to be an entrepreneur, and you have to be a Christian. And then she gave me special New York advice that always believe in Jesus and associate with Jews. But he got the whole scene figured out. So, one minute I wanted to be a chemical engineer. The next minute, let's see, when I'm 9 years old, she asked me, what do you want to be now? And I was reading the newspaper cover to cover, New York Times, and at that time, there was no internet, so all the job listings were in the newspaper. And so I would just read the job descriptions and think, yes, I should be this, I should be that. And so I decided I wanted to be an investment banker. So I was 9, I told my mother, I want to be an investment banker specializing in chemical portfolios. What does she do? Immediately races to the children's bookshop, comes back with a book, Your Child's Future as an Investment Banker. So a good parent knows how to stimulate the child's appetite. Many of you have parents like that. Well, similarly, Krishna knows how to stimulate you just by hearing about pure bhakti, even though it seems so far away. You become purified and you come closer to acting in that way. Now you might say, well, this will take all my life, being able to execute pure devotional service. But so what? If I tell you it's going to take you your whole life to rise up to being CEO, what will you say? Oh, that's fine. Very good. If I'm CEO by the time I'm 65, my life is successful. Now if I tell you, you start your bhakti now, and by the time you're 65, you could be doing pure devotional service, oh, I can't wait that. Right? Too far away. This shows how, unfortunately, biased we are. We can show such patience and determination for material gain, but for the ultimate goal of life, it's so far away. So my point is that just by hearing about a calm bhakti, bhakti without material desires, we become attracted. And the Shastra says that when you participate in such talks, no one can calculate the benefit just by your participating in this discussion about pure bhakti. You may not see it, but the effects are there. Just like I didn't see the effects when my mother was asking what career, what this, that, the other. But obviously the effect was there. What? Always asking, what university are you going to go to? You might say, why does an 8-year-old and 9-year-old have to think about such things? But she's stimulating the appetite. She would always point out in the neighborhood, see that young man across the street? He's doing very badly. You don't want to be like that. What about this one around the corner from us? He's doing great. You want to be like that. He's always making propaganda. So I thought, why is Mother doing this? But gradually, when you get older, you realize this shapes your outlook. And that's just about something material. What about hearing of pure devotional service, which is non-different? The subject matter is non-different from Krishna. So we want to have complete confidence that Krishna knows what he's doing with us. We appreciate that he's open, whether you're sarva-kama, full of material desires, akama, free from material desires, moksha-kama. This is an unusual one, you might think. Someone who is lusty for liberation. You don't meet those kind of persons too much these days. Everything these days is economic development. But moksha-kama means someone who is disgusted with material happiness and wants out of material existence and wants to merge into the Brahman. That is moksha-kama. It's actually, believe it or not, this is an advanced point, but we'll just mention it. The acharyas point out that moksha-kama, the the lust for getting out of material existence is stronger than even material desire. Therefore, it's mentioned in the class by itself. Sarvakama, Mokshakama. I want out. Now, what's the problem with that desire? Does anyone know? Yes.
We might return.
There's a more essential problem, whether you return or not.
Where do we go?
Does not want to serve.
It's got nothing to do with serving Krishna. It's just, I want out of suffering. And it's an intense desire, even more than wanting to enjoy materially. I've had enough. This is crazy. Samsara, repeated birth and death. I want out. But there's no motivation to serve Krishna. Therefore, what's the use? And unless you develop a desire to serve Krishna, you haven't achieved the real goal of life, even though you may be a mokshakami. But that's an advanced point. What we want to focus on is the glories of pure bhakti. And Srimad Bhagavatam is demonstrating that, especially in Braj Leela. Now, how many of you have wondered, how could there be selfless love for Krishna in Vrindavan when it seems everyone is always crying out to Krishna when there's some distress? Anyone think about that? So what is actually going on? Just like when the cowherd boys are wandering through the forest with Krishna. They've been playing all morning, and the cowherd boys say, Krishna and Balaram, we're hungry. Isn't that selfish?
Every step they want
Yeah.
to please Krishna.
It seems selfish, but what are they actually thinking? Krishna's playing all morning. Balaram's playing all morning. They are hungry, but they won't eat unless we, their friends, say we are hungry. So they're saying we are hungry out of service and friendship with Krishna. They're not thinking of themselves. They're simply thinking of Krishna. Or when Krishna's confidential lovers dress themselves, decorate themselves, usually you would say that's an act of egotism. They want to look pretty. But no, they're thinking Krishna will enjoy by looking at us. Whatever they do is completely selfless. It's all for Krishna's pleasure. So in Vrindavan, it looks like everyone is full of their own desires, but no, 100% they're simply thinking of Krishna's satisfaction. Just like when some demon attacks, what are the Brijvasis thinking? They immediately call out to Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Mahabaho. Are they just trying to save their own skin? No. What are they thinking? If we die, that will affect Krishna's enjoyment. Therefore, we should live. In order to live, we have to call out to Krishna to save us. We shouldn't die because we exist for Krishna's pleasure. If we die, that means less pleasure for Krishna. So therefore, we're calling out Krishna. It seems like we're calling out to Krishna to save our own bodies, but no, we're calling out to Krishna to save his happiness because we're necessary for his happiness. Completely different way of thinking, isn't it? And that is the glory of Vrindavan. So the more you become familiar with this principle of pure bhakti, which is explained by Rupa Goswami in the beginning of Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Klesha Gri Shupada Moksha Lagrata Krit Sudurlabha Sandrananda Visheshatma. Pure devotion has 6 characteristics. It destroys all difficulties coming from sinful reactions. It bestows auspiciousness, the best kind of auspiciousness. It minimizes the value of liberation. It's very difficult to achieve, and it gives the most intense pleasure to the self. Now, normally, pure bhakti is exceedingly rare. But we have the great fortune of serving Krishna in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, making the approach to pure bhakti so easy. In fact, as many of you know, Lord Chaitanya distributes love of Krishna to people who don't know about Krishna. And that's all over the world. Everywhere, there's either ignorance of Krishna or confusion about Krishna. In the Western world, there's ignorance of Krishna. In India, there's confusion about Krishna. Who knows Krishna in truth? But still, Krishna, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is giving the taste of love, distributing the taste of love for someone that no one knows. Now think about that. In order to love someone, you have to know that person. So how do you distribute a taste of the experience of loving someone that you have no knowledge of? That is the miracle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And only Krishna can do that. So Krishna does that, though, not as Krishna. He does it as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Both Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are Swayam Bhagavan. I always love to explain this point. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not actually an avatar. He is Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. That one Supreme Absolute Truth appears in two ways, as Krishna, the Supreme Enjoyer, and as Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Relisher of love and separation. So they're both the original personality of Godhead. And they both have their special neighborhood at the top of the spiritual world. Lord Chaitanya has Navadvip at the top of the Krishna Loka planet, and Krishna has Vrindavan. When you look at the cover of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, what do you see? You see the lotus flower and the center of a lotus flower, and in the center, half is Lord Chaitanya and his associates, and the other half is Krishna and his associates. And who designed that cover? Srila Prabhupada designed that cover. So there you have it. What's actually going on at the top portion of the spiritual world. So Krishna is thinking to himself, and those of you who have read Chaitanya Charitamrita will know that. He says, I want to taste what it's like to be my own lover, but I can't do this as Krishna. So Chaitanya Charitamrita actually says that Krishna is sorrowful. Now what does that mean? How can Krishna be sorrowful? It's not material sorrowfulness like we experience. Because actually nothing is impossible for Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, but he's suspecting that his devotees enjoy more by serving him than he does by receiving the love and service of the devotees. So it seems like there's something Krishna can't experience himself. He knows that his pure devotees, those engaged in pure service, are tasting pleasure thousands of times more than what he tastes. So then how can Krishna be the supreme enjoyer? Krishna is thinking, he's wondering, what's it like to love me? But he can't solve that question as Krishna. He's not in the position of the lover, he's in the position of the beloved. Can you imagine you're thinking in that way? What's it like to love me? No, we're so love-starved, we'll take love any way it comes. So Krishna is wondering deeply, what is it that my lovers experience in their pure bhakti, free from all material desire? I can't experience this as Krishna. Does that mean Krishna has some limitation? No. He comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as his own devotee, and experiences what is pure love, pure bhakti. And while he's doing that, while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is experiencing pure love, he's distributing the taste of it to the most unqualified persons. No one knows Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is distributing the taste of love of Krishna to everyone freely, regardless of their qualification. This is why we are here. We don't have the qualification to approach Krishna. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Who remembers? 18th chapter? Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. He's giving you the qualifications you need to be considered for engaging in devotional service. So just think, how many of you, before you came to Bhakti, how many of you were on the Brahma Bhuta platform? Fully established in your spiritual identity. Anyway? Prasanatma, fully joyful 24/7 because you were fully realized that you're spirit soul. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na shochati na kankshati. No lamenting, no material desires for anything. Anyone? Before you came? Before you started chanting Hare Krishna? No? What else? Sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Seeing all living entities as equal. Anyone? And what does Krishna then say? Mad bhaktim labhate param. From this position you can begin bhakti. Anyone? So what happened? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya and gives Krishna away. In the most degraded age, of course we think everything is very technologically advanced now, but in terms of human behavior, human qualities, it's the worst age. And yet, Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving away the taste of love of Krishna to people who don't even know Krishna. They're either confused about Krishna, like in India, or they have no idea about Krishna, like in the West. This is the miracle of Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So see Lord Chaitanya and Krishna as a double reality. The same absolute truth appearing in two ways. Here's an easy way to grasp that. When Lord Chaitanya wants to enjoy, when he wants to be the supreme enjoyer, he appears as Krishna. And when Krishna wants to taste love and separation from himself, he appears as Lord Chaitanya. So if you remember that, you've got the whole picture. So there's complete hope for our desires. Engage in devotional service, and Krishna will personally take care of your desires. He'll fulfill them in a way that you'll forget about them. Painless. He's in your heart. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishta. He says, I'm seated in your heart. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. That means Krishna from within your heart will help you to forget your material desires. Because he's in charge of forgetfulness, knowledge, and remembrance. This is exciting to understand. The power of your desire, the future of your desires. You have complete possibilities for success. All right, any questions? We want to leave some time for questions.
How can we gain the vision to see Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita as Krishna, as with as much potency as we might see the deity form of Krishna?
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, serve Srimad Bhagavatam, teaching its message, distributing it, demonstrating it in action. What else does the first canto of Bhagavatam say? Vasudeva Kataruchi Syamahat Sevaya Vibra. By rendering service to the great souls, you develop Vasudeva Kataruchi, the taste, the ruchi for talks about Vasudeva, talks about Krishna. It's all about service. You take up Lord Chaitanya's mission, and he'll personally see that you develop a taste for hearing about Krishna. Do you think you're telling everyone to chant Hare Krishna and then you'll have no taste for chanting Hare Krishna? We're all about devotional service. We're not such a group of religious believers, you know. We are dynamic activists in Krishna's service. That means engaging the senses for Krishna's pleasure. Pranar artar diya vacha. We use our whole life's energy for Krishna's pleasure. Our wealth for Krishna's pleasure. Our intelligence for Krishna's service. And our words for Krishna's service. Everything. If you feel you can't give your whole life for Krishna's service, then give your resources. You can't give your resources, give your intelligence. Give something. Give your words. And gradually you'll make spiritual advancement. So bhakti is exciting. There are full possibilities for everyone. And by our association with sincere devotees who are progressive in their spiritual development, you become detached from material desires that you thought were so important. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he thought what he wanted was so important. Narada Muni knew, you're just a child. But Dhruva was so intense. He was brokenhearted by his being insulted. What did his stepmother tell him? You can't sit in your father's lap. I'm the favorite wife, but you were not born from the womb of the favorite wife, me. The only thing you can do, can you imagine telling this to a 5-year-old? The only thing you can do is perform austerities for hundreds of births, and if you're lucky, you might in the future take birth from my womb. Can you ladies imagine saying such a thing? It's like a razor blade just slicing across your throat. And Dhruva he's a Kshatriya. He can't, even as a little kid, he can't tolerate insults. So he ran to his mother, crying. The ladies in the palace had already informed his mother through the ladies' grapevine, your son is really angry, he's really devastated. So when Dhruva showed up before his mother, she told him, I know you're coming to me for care and affection to solve this situation. You've been insulted. But let me tell you, there is someone who is more affectionate than millions of mothers like me. And that person will fulfill your desires. Dhruva said, who is that? She said, Vishnu. Dhruva said, well, where do you find this Vishnu? The mother, very simple, she said, I've been told that great saints and sages and yogis go to the forest to look for Vishnu. Dhruva was gone. Out to the forest. Just see that determination. With material desires. Yet, when he saw Krishna as Lord Krishnagarbha, Dhruva said, I'm so satisfied. I don't want anything material. I was a fool wanting broken pieces of glass. Now I've got the greatest jewel. So Krishna will do the same for you. Just engage in his service. Most of you trusted your parents. But Krishna is the Supreme Father. How can he be the Supreme Father and not know how to handle your desires? He's in your heart. Everything is his energy. He knows how to treat you. He knows what's best for you. So the purpose of this seminar is to drag you away from Krishna paranoia. Make you less of a religious believer and more of a bhakti activist. Because it's desire that fuels everything in existence. Another question? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have one question that if you said that Krishna says that remembrance and forgetfulness comes from me.
Chapter 15.
Chapter 15.15.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Go on.
So if forgetfulness comes from him, then why do we forget Krishna? Why don't we remember all the time?
Because Krishna knows you don't want to remember him, so he regretfully helps you.
But I want to remember.
Then he'll help. That's why you're here, yes? You can't even be a demon unless Krishna helps you. That's how tiny you are. You want to forget Krishna, you can't do it without his help. He doesn't advise you to do that, but you insist. Like a temper tantrum. I want to be the enjoyer. I want to be the controller. Krishna says, I don't advise that, but you insist. So then he said, all right, I'll help you to forget me. Similarly, if you want to remember him, be so happy. So now you're chanting Hare Krishna.
Yes.
You have Krishna. You're engaged in devotional service. That is Krishna. But just see how wonderful your life has become. So increase. Be greedy. More Krishna, more Krishna.
Exactly.
Have you ever been greedy in your life before?
I don't have any desire now.
I'll do it. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaji, Dandavat Pranam. So how can we balance spiritual life and material life in terms of effort and time? Like, how will I know if I'm becoming complacent in my material life, not putting enough effort, using Krishna consciousness as an excuse, like, oh, Krishna is there, he will take care, so how will I know? Or even like the other way around, if I'm using my material life, like my studies, for example, as an excuse not to do devotional service.
Bhakti requires guidance, just like Arjuna did in Bhagavad Gita. So what you're asking requires guidance from a spiritual master, from the senior Vaishnavas, and then you can easily handle all these questions. How much should I study? I want to make sure my studies don't crowd out my spiritual life, but I have to do my studies. There's no point in going to school unless you're going to do it properly. It takes time and money to go to school. So you need guidance. So bhakti is all about a guidance culture. And we're hoping that this North Sydney temple community will have such a guidance culture. So that questions like yours can easily be handled, and you have legitimate concerns. That shows you're sincere. Any sincere person is thinking, in my situation, how can I best serve Krishna? That requires guidance. That's why Krishna says in the 4th chapter, you want to know about the intricacies of pleasing me? Then you approach my representative. So we're not on our own, we're not alone. The more guidance you have in bhakti, the wealthier you are. So guidance is the real wealth of the devotee.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. So how can we exactly assure that we are not desiring for our own pleasure, but for Krishna pleasure? Because sometimes the desires that arise may feel like, yeah, I mean, my mind will be convincing me it's only for Krishna's pleasure, but I may also get pleasure from it. So how can I assure that I can ask this or I should not ask this?
Again, you have guidance. And if you're regularly reading Prabhupada's books, they bring you to that point of being able to see clearly. So you have the Shastra, you have the Vaishnavas, you have a spiritual master. They all help you to see clearly. But sometimes people say, but I don't have that guidance with me 24/7 and I have to make decisions. Krishna is not cruel. He's in your heart. He can tell when you're trying to be sincere. Should I turn left or should I turn right? What is the best for Krishna's pleasure? He's in your heart, observing your sincerity. Sometimes I think that we think Krishna is some kind of cruel person. He makes bhakti look so attractive and then at the same time makes it so difficult. No, Krishna wants us to come to him much more than we want to go to him. So he's giving you all facility, but we have to learn how to see that. We're so used to being on our own like orphans in the material world. No one's going to help me. I don't know what to do. Bhakti is difficult. Right?
So it's totally fine to desire if we are also getting some pleasure out of it.
Where does Krishna say no pleasure? Where does he say that? You think we're going to have some kind of secret police going around analyzing? Are you getting pleasure from bhakti? But a real devotee is not concerned by his or her own pleasure. A real devotee is thinking always of Krishna's pleasure. But here's the paradox, the mystery that is so obvious when presented by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is explained in the 4th chapter of Adi Leela of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna's dearmost devotees, the cowherd girls of Brajabhumi, never acted for their own happiness, but Krishna forced happiness on them. Very mystical. They never thought in the slightest, we're doing this to be happy. They're only thinking, how can Krishna enjoy? But Krishna then, from his side, pushes the happiness on them.
So we need not worry about that.
Exactly. A real devotee doesn't worry about that. A real devotee is just greedy for more service to Krishna. Just like when a parent has children. Let's say you have a 3 or 4-year-old child. Any mothers here with 3 or 4-year-old child? So, does the 3 or 4-year-old child have to be in anxiety? Mother, how is the mortgage being paid? Are you making the car payments monthly? That would be bizarre, right? But this is how we think of Krishna. That will he take care of me? Will I be happy? This is why Lord Chaitanya is so important. And there is so much confusion about Krishna because we don't approach Krishna through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, we're baffled, bewildered. I was reading in some airlines magazine once on Air India. Air India. And what did I read? Krishna is the Hindu forest love god. So all that confusion is there because the people are not approaching Krishna through Lord Chaitanya, and therefore they're bewildered.
So how does it exactly mean by approaching through Lord Chaitanya?
Lord Chaitanya says, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. We're chanting Hare Krishna, and we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam upon the order of Lord Chaitanya, who said, before you are liberated, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and after you are liberated, go on hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So, no matter which category you're in. Very nice questions.
Prabhu Maharaj, my question is probably a little more than what Mataji just said, but sometimes with desire as well, we're so confused as to whether our desire is really a desire, whether we want it, or whether we're allowed to ask Krishna about it. Is that sort of balance, you know, in that state of mind where you have balance, whether you know it's a desire or are you supposed to ask of it or not? What do we do in such situations?
When you say that last point again,
When we don't know whether it's a desire, should we really ask of it? Or is
can you
it...
give me an example so it's not so theoretical?
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji.
Should I get a Mercedes-Benz
Oh,
or
no.
a BMW?
It's probably a little more deeper than that. I just give you...
Men would think this is a very crucial question. Right? She shouldn't laugh at that question. It's the ultimate goal of life.
Yeah, Prabhu, but I don't know how to put this, but I'll just give you the practical example of myself. Probably that's more the way of saying it. So, I've genuinely had a very, very powerful desire as a mother to have another child. I have a daughter. We have a daughter, but always there's a battle between my mind and myself. Probably it's always something that I always went it out to Krishna every morning, thinking of the fact that having another child wouldn't actually help me progress in bhakti, or probably, would kind of disturb the entire setup that's at the moment, and probably not allow me to go ahead with bhakti. So I don't know whether this is a desire that, I know at the end of the day I keep telling myself, Krishna, you're the Father, you know everything, but that turmoil that we go through every day, I mean, at least I go through every day, I don't know how to say it out, Maharaj, this is my...
Well, that particular issue is one of the delights of the householder ashram. Should I, shouldn't I? Child number 2 or no? That's what you signed up for. What does Krishna say in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Dharma Varudo Bhutesu, or 9th chapter? Kamosmi Bhadatarsava. I am child production according to Dharma. So that's the main point. Bring into the world a powerful child who can benefit the world. Whether it's number 1 or number 2, number 3, I don't know, maybe number 10.
It was just one of those sort of questions that probably everyone would have, but I don't know, it just...
Of course, it goes on all the time, believe me. Even the Swamis know, it goes on all the time. Kumaj, number 2 or number 3, what should I do? You have to work it out with your husband, and it's good that you're thinking, can my spiritual life handle another child? That's very good. So every family is unique, and so the husband and wife have to work it out. for Krishna's pleasure, hopefully.
So that was just an example. So that was the question, the underlying question. So when we have a dilemma under ourselves, trying to work out, so is that how we've got to look at it? We've to look at it whether this thought is probably in my mind because it was meant for Krishna's pleasure.
The fact that you're thinking in this way, is this for Krishna's pleasure or not? Is this beneficial or not? That shows the beginning of love for Krishna. So we're just happy that you're considering in that way. That's Krishna's mercy on you. Otherwise you wouldn't care. But because you're concerned about your spiritual life and Krishna's service, you're going back and forth. Should I, shouldn't I? That's the beginning of love.
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Just one question on the difference between givers and takers. And so we have this knowledge acquiring senses which goes inside. So how do we see those as givers rather than the takers? You are giving lecture, we are listening, so we are taking it. So how do we see that as a giving rather than taking?
I'm not clear. Taking what?
So givers and takers you mentioned in the first half.
Takers want Krishna to be the order supplier, using Prabhupada's phrase. This is the danger of simply understanding that God is great. Because one option that can be very prominent in your thinking is that since God is great, what? He should give me what I want. He should fulfill all my orders. Better to understand, yes, Krishna is inconceivable, Krishna is unlimited, and I should engage in his service. So as long as you have that desire to give service, you'll become purified of the desire to take. Take from Krishna, take from other living entities, take everything from here, there. So I was mentioning my personal prayer to transform the desire for taking into a desire for giving. The energy is there. Just like I pointed out, go to work not to take, but go to work to give. Does it sound possible?
So it seems possible when the person is outside, but when we see ourselves, we see even if let's say drinking water. So I'm taking water, for example. So how to define that in language, like I'm giving water?
What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Rasaham apsukamteya. So when you take the water, because you probably are not drinking as much water as you should every day. So you need to give yourself more water. While you're drinking the water, you think Krishna is the taste of the water. So Prabhupada explained that if of course, you're certainly not a drunkard, but if you're a drunkard and you're drinking wine and you think Krishna is the taste in the wine, then gradually one day you'll be Krishna conscious. There are much quicker and better ways.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So when we have these desires, how to communicate with Krishna? Like as you said, he's sitting in our heart. He knows our desire. So, and I also heard devotees say you have to call out loudly and ask Krishna for your desire. So how is the dynamics works like?
Well, it depends on what you want. When you're chanting Hare Krishna, you are calling out to Krishna. Please engage me in your service. But you're speaking about other things.
Other desires.
Give me Lakshmi, Lakshmi, Lakshmi. And a house by the sea. Jai Jagadisha Hari. And even if you have those kind of desires, still approach Krishna. It's just not the most intelligent thing, but still you're known as having broad intelligence because you're approaching Krishna. So yes, you can approach Krishna if you so desire for BMW or Mercedes or the second one or whatever. It's not recommended, but the fact you're approaching Krishna shows that you're broad-minded. Udarati. But it's not the best.
Thanks, Maharaj. And one more question is, suppose, when you said when we approach Krishna with a desire, he will make sure he will fulfill our, he makes sure that we don't have that intensity to ask him again. So he makes it the desire in that position. Is it for one desire or for all the desires?
You think Krishna is overloaded? Krishna has unlimited desires himself. And he has the unlimited ability to satisfy each one of his unlimited desires. I was speaking about this somewhere the other night. Was it at the Bhakti House? Or somewhere else? Maybe up at New Govardhan. If I ask you, how many desires do you have? How many can you count? If I ask you, how many desires do you have? Let's just pretend, all right. I want a bigger house. I want more money. I want... Ladies generally don't want BMWs. The man's thing. I want my own SUV full of kids. I want a husband who appreciates me 24/7. Who always listens whenever I want to talk.
Never granted.
And you're getting difficulty just getting past 5. So now you have to throw in something like, I want world peace. I want COVID to go away. You're still up to 7. We're not so complicated, you know? We don't have that many desires. But Krishna has unlimited desires. You can't conceive of that. Not only does he have unlimited desires, but he has the unlimited ability to satisfy all of his unlimited desires. Independently. This characteristic you'll find in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's called Swaraja Lakshmi. Krishna has the independent ability to satisfy every one of his unlimited desires. This is someone you can trust. Anything?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
How do you develop maybe more faith for Krishna, or always think about Krishna? If you want to have it, you should have more love to the Krishna. How do we develop it? Or how can we completely surrender to Krishna? If you, let's say, go for work and everything, then in that case, how do we completely always remember Krishna?
If we're going to work, what's that?
No, if we go to work and everywhere, in that position also, how do we always keep remembering Krishna?
In which situation?
Going to work.
Going to work.
Yeah.
I explained that. Maybe you didn't hear. Go to work to give, not to get. Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, in all your activities, work under my protection. Be fully conscious of me, and you'll cross over all the obstacles of material life, I promise you, by my grace. So go to work to give yourself a bhakti lifestyle, give it to your family, and give it to as much of the world as your resources allow. You're a billionaire, you can contribute to making facilities for people to come and hear about Krishna all over the world. According to your capacity, whether you're a billionaire or middle class, lower income, whatever. Give something to Krishna. Go to work for giving to Krishna. Give yourself a bhakti lifestyle, give it to your family, and give it to as much of the world as your resources allow. You see, I'll elaborate. You know this verse in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Kamanyeva Tikaraste. All over India, everyone knows part of this verse. And they'll tell you immediately. Krishna says, Bhagavan says, you have a right to do your duty. You must do your duty. Right? What about the second half of the verse? Who knows? Anyone know the second half of the verse? Huh? You're not entitled to the fruits, to the results. That part is forgotten. Just, you must do your duty. Krishna says, do your duty. But then Krishna says, do your duty and you're not entitled to the results. Forgotten that part. We don't remember that part. So you go to work to give yourself a bhakti home, bhakti family, and help the world become Krishna conscious. And you'll see the change. Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we want to have some kirtan before we go. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, do we have a mridanga player? There you are.